John chapter 2, verses 1 through 11. On the third day, a wedding took place in Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no more wine." "Woman, why do you involve me?" Jesus replied, "My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." So they filled them to the brim. Then he said, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet." They did so. And the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Then he called the bridegroom aside and said, "Everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you saved the best till now." What Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. This is the word of the Lord. So this is the first of the signs of Jesus. Anybody know how many signs there are in the book of John? 7 it is. 7 signs. There are 7 signs in the book of John and 7 I am statements. And so as John is giving us a full and complete picture of Jesus and who he is, 7 symbolizing from Genesis 1, where the world was created in 7 days, and at the end it was declared good. Well, it was completed in 6 days, and then the Sabbath was the last day of creation, was a day of rest. And that 7 signifies completeness. It's done. The world has been made. It's complete. And John giving us 7 I am statements and 7 signs, he wants to show us a new creation, a new 7 days of creating something new, 7 signs. Now, the first sign is different than the rest. If you were to line them up, you would have, I think 3 healings. Let's count them. 3 healings, water into wine, Jesus walking on water, Jesus feeding the 5,000, and the last sign, the sign that everything built towards, was John 11, the story of Lazarus being raised from the dead. That's the 7th sign in the book of John. This one feels just different. It's of a different order of the other 7 signs. You can see how healing a paralyzed man that had been lowered to Jesus, brought to Jesus by his friends, I think that was the 2nd or 3rd sign. That is healing. I mean, let's just be real. If you had to choose between somebody at a restaurant who wanted to take his family out to dinner, went to pay for that food, and his credit card was declined, and now he's sitting there at the table, "I don't know what to do. This is so embarrassing." Or someone who was born blind being able to see. Can we just admit those are different order things? Jesus thankfully does both. He takes a social faux pas, something that was ultimately a failure to show hospitality. All these guests are coming. This is 1st century Middle Eastern culture where hospitality was a supreme duty, responsibility. And they fail. And as much more of a faux pas then as it is now, let's be real. This is the gospel. This is Jesus coming to save humankind. This is not a Jane Austen novel where you can build a whole story around a social faux pas, right? There are higher stakes here. There's something mundane about this miracle, something that, I wouldn't say it feels beneath Christ, but you can see in here that there has to be something more going on. John says, this is the first sign. These are the first words out of Jesus' mouth. This is going from his majestic poem, introduction to Jesus. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God. The Word was God. Christ came and made his dwelling among us. John was not the one. Jesus was the one. He gives this magnificent prologue, which is the highest Christology, as high as any Christology in all of Scripture, put it that way. Then John the Baptist comes in. He baptizes Jesus, says Jesus is the one, and then Jesus is at a wedding in Cana. There is more going on here, as we'll see. That the message, the whole story of the gospel is found in this story. But when I say there's more going on, there's not less going on. What I mean by that is oftentimes we're praying, right? And tell me if you've had this experience. You're praying and there's a major earthquake, thousands missing and dead. And you're moved by what you're seeing on the news. And you see the suffering, especially amongst the poor. And you cry out to God, mercy, mercy. And then you think of something you need. And you look at this cry for mercy, for suffering on the other side of the world, and then you look at your suffering and you go like, I feel weird even asking God for that now because of that gap. And what this message, what this story reminds us is you can have both. You can have the cosmic and the mundane commingling. You can have somebody that has what at the end of the day is an embarrassing situation and a story of God redeeming all mankind. It's more, but it's not less than that. It's not less than a reminder that God cares for the whole of you, that God doesn't listen to your prayers and go like, well, that's a pretty petty thing to ask for me with all this suffering I'm privileged to. No, God cares about all of it. And this is a sign of the cosmic and the very particular commingling together, because that's what it looks like when the kingdom of heaven comes, when the kingdom of heaven draws near. So that's God's heart. But speaking of God's heart, I'm going to read verse 4 again. And the context is Mary comes to Jesus, no request. She just makes a statement. She finds Jesus and she says, they're out of wine. Listen to what Jesus says. Woman, why do you involve me? My hour has not yet come. Is that weird? Can we confess that that's a little bit weird? Imagine, what I was imagining is if my wife made the observation, the dishes need to be put away. So, statement. And one of my kids said to Lindsay, woman, why do you involve me? My hour has not yet come. I can assure you that would be the first of many chores added to their plate that day to remind them that that is not a way that you talk to your parent. It's not an appropriate response. So let me just start going through phrase by phrase and maybe open up, because I think understanding this verse really helps unlock the rest of the passage for us. So this is one of two times when Jesus calls Mary woman. When he's speaking directly to her, he says woman. Okay? Let me read you the other time. This is found in John 19. Near the cross of Jesus stood his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother there and the disciple whom he loved standing nearby, and if you're wondering which disciple that is, it's the one who's writing this book. This is John. He said to her, woman, here's your son. And to the disciple, here's your mother. From that time on, the disciple took her into his home. So you can see here that Jesus, using the phrase woman, doesn't mean that he's dismissing her, he's disconnecting that from her. He, in this moment, is on the cross, bearing all the sins of humankind, unjustly beaten, whipped, crown of thorns, spit on. He looks down and he sees his mom. And he thinks, one of the 10 Commandments is honor your mother and father. And that means take care of them as they age. Protect them, provide for them. And he thinks, somebody has to provide for my mother. So in that moment, he says, woman, behold your son, and puts her in a place where she'll be loved and cared for, which is what John says, which is what I did. I took care of her, and she moved in with me. Woman, I think, is Jesus relating to her as more than just her son. That he's expanding into how he relates to her, especially in light of what this passage, some of the deeper meanings of it. And, every parent, we all have to let go of our kid at some point. For most of us, that time is still ahead of us. For others of us, she's in college. She's about to start college. They're grown up and moved on, and they're living their lives. And part of what Mary understood from the very beginning was that Jesus will forever be your son, and so much more. And this word woman is, I think, expanding her understanding of who Jesus is. And as he's beginning to enter into his calling, he's not brushing her aside. He's not demeaning or diminishing her. He's opening up a world now where Jesus is going to be so much more to her. And then he says, why do you involve me? Now, I want you to think about the last time you said, why are you involving me? Or some variation. How is that my problem? What do you want me to do about it? When we use that phrase, generally speaking, you know what? I'm not going to put my junk on you. When I use that phrase, it's a way of getting out from under responsibility. It's a way of deferring and saying, no, that's not my problem. Why are you involving me? Why are you even telling me this stuff? Now, could that be possibly what Jesus meant? No, it couldn't. You say, why couldn't it be that? Well, what does he do next? Does he take care of the problem, or does he walk away from it? Does Mary understand him to be brushing her aside, or does Mary say, oh, okay, it's happening, and she goes and gets the servants immediately? Clearly, he's not being sarcastic or brushing her aside. And we know that because she responds as if he's going to do something. So maybe, and probably this is the only way to read it, because I don't think Jesus spoke sarcastically. I think he was intentional about his words. I don't think there's any subtext here. What if he's just curious? Why are you involving me? What do you know? What have you seen? What do you think I'm going to do? That he's inviting her to contemplate why it is that she's bringing this to Jesus, what her expectations are, and what she saw in him that thought Jesus could actually be the one to fix and rescue and save us in this problem. And we know that Jesus is thinking and planning to do it, but he still has one more thing he says that might be confusing, which is, my hour has not come. Why does he say that? What is, my hour's not come, and then immediately he does it. He can't be talking about my hour to present myself publicly can't come, because he does the thing. So what is he referring to with my hour? Well, it's used several times in John. Let me read you the last time Jesus refers to, or John refers to, the hour of Jesus. This is John 13:1. It was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave the world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who are in the world, he loved them to the end. The hour in John is Jesus' crucifixion. His coming hour, there's about a half dozen references to the hour in the Gospel of John. Each time specifically is talking about what his whole life was leading towards, which was the cross. And so, zoom out. Mary is looking at the wedding around her. The festivities, the joy, the music, the laughter, the connection. Weddings is one of those few places where you put your issues aside and say, so-and-so and I haven't talked for 5 years, and they're probably going to be at the wedding, but this wedding's bigger than this. This wedding's bigger than this petty thing that has driven us apart. Hopefully, that's your experience. So she is looking at one level at what's happening around her. And what Jesus is seeing is the wedding, but he's also seeing something else. To Jesus, the wedding itself is a sign, pointing towards something. And what Jesus is doing and what John is doing in this telling of this story is inviting us to see through the wedding into the kingdom of heaven. That this is a window, a lens by which we can see what the kingdom is, what Jesus meant by the gospel he preached, which is that the kingdom is drawn near. And this first miracle is a sign of everything that Jesus has come to accomplish. So let's look through Jesus' eyes and see the picture, because the sign points us towards the thing. If you drove all the way to the Grand Canyon and saw a sign that said, "Welcome to the Grand Canyon," and thought you saw the Grand Canyon, brother and sister, there's so much more to the Grand Canyon than this sign. The sign is only pointing you towards what you've been looking for. So this wedding is a sign pointing us towards what it is that we desire more than anything else. So, what does Jesus see? Well, what's the first thing after the servants come to him that he looks at? What do his eyes see? His eyes see 6 stone jars. 20 to 30 gallons of water can fit inside it. And what is the purpose of those jars? John tells us. This is used out of the Jewish faith for ceremonial washing. So we are told that as people were coming to the wedding, and you think, what household would need that many jars for ceremonial washing? Actually, when I say that, probably somebody like me, somebody needs a lot of washing. No, this is a wedding, and this is like in any wedding. This is before Party City, USA, would come to deliver things for your needs. You borrow things. So here, maybe the varying sizes is because they're kind of eclectic. They're a patchwork of borrowed ceremonial washing jars. And they have 2 primary functions. The first is more common, ordinary. It is the way that when you come to a wedding, and it's in the first century, and you know how you just sometimes need to wash up before you go somewhere fancy? The feet get dirty, so you wash your feet off, your face, maybe you do your hair a little bit. So the first use of that water was common, and you could say that is about how we relate to each other. I want to honor you by being presentable. Mission accomplished. Second, everybody's awake, right? That was really funny. All right. I mean, it wasn't as funny as my Jane Austen joke, but do you want to hear the other joke I was going to tell you that I thought better of, since it's just us this morning? Jesus came and turned water into wine, and the Baptists have been trying to turn it back into water ever since. You can see why I decided not to tell that joke. It's a little bit mean-spirited. Anyway, so here are these jars. So the first purpose of using these washing jars is in our everyday life together. You might say it's how you love your neighbor as yourself. It's part of the way you join into a hospitable relationship is by washing and being presentable. Man, my teenage boys really need to hear this part of the sermon. Yes. Secondly, and this would be in the love God part of it, there's a ritual side to it. There's a way as you come to a gathering, a public gathering, in a ceremony that seeks to bring God's blessing over a couple, that seeks to bring God into everything that is happening around them, of recognizing the way that we need to be cleansed, not just on the outside, but on the inside. That's the ceremonial part. So as you're washing your hands, and you're now entering into a moment of prayer in connection to God, you might say something like, Father, as I wash my hands of its dirt, would you cleanse me from within? I want to be open to you. I want to love you in this moment. I want all of my life to be a reflection of some way of worship. So I'm going to take a moment right now and wash myself as an act of trust in your mercy and goodness to cleanse me from within. So you can see these ceremonial jars are a way of loving God and loving neighbor. They're a way of inviting God to cleanse you from within, to present yourselves to community and enjoy this moment. And one of the important parts of this that I was struck by is it's a way of inviting God to your wedding. It's a way of saying, I'm getting married and I'm thinking about our life together, all the friends, the planning, how we're going to pay for it. But none of this matters if you're not here, God. None of what is going to take place without your blessing, without your mercy here. I want you at my wedding too. And every guest who comes in and uses that water is presenting themselves before God, saying, I want you here too, God. And would you believe God showed up to the wedding? Part of what Jesus said over and over again is, I've not come to abolish the law. I've not come to wipe it all away and destroy it. I've come to show you what it's all for. And in this first miracle, with the ceremonial washing jars, please allow me to show you what this is all for. And what he does is he fills it with wine. And there's a flurry of motion. So who knew about this, first and foremost? Who knew about what had happened? The text tells us. Did the steward know? No, he had no idea. John says he didn't know where the wine came from, which is why he was so rude and weird about it. Only the servants knew. Part of what this points to in the kingdom of heaven is that the first shall be last, and the last shall be first. Servants would be the last. They're there to be invisible. They're only to present themselves when there's a need. And if you look around and with the question, who's invisible here? Who only appears when there's a need? Who only shows up when I have a need, and the rest of the time I don't want to have to see them or deal with them? This is the sign who the kingdom's for and who will be the first to see it. It's the servants. And the steward comes, and at some point the water's been transformed into wine. The servants are just obeying Jesus, and we don't know when it turned into wine. Was it when the steward first drank it? Was it when the waters were full and they poured out? We don't know. But the steward is, and all the commentators talk about how rude he is and how strange he is. I don't know if you've dealt with a lot of wedding coordinators, but it's not that hard to imagine. Somebody who is so task-oriented and task-focused that they are, geez, John, did he just throw wedding coordinators under the bus right there? Why did he do that? Anyway, he takes it, he drinks it, and all this, he would have known that they're out of wine. And he would have been the number one person panicking about it. What are we going to do? Where can we get some? Who has some money? And all of a sudden, the servant says to the steward, try this wine. We got some more wine. And he drinks it. And he's like, whoa, where'd you get this wine? And he runs to the groom and is like, bro, usually you serve the cheap stuff after the good stuff, but you did the cheap stuff first. This wine's amazing. I don't know why you didn't serve it at the beginning before people started losing their sense of taste, as the wine drinking went on in the evening. But you, sir, have saved the best for last. And he goes back and the party continues. And nobody but the servants know who did this. Now, what I like to do, and what I try to do in this passage as I was studying and preparing for it, was picture Jesus at this wedding. So at the beginning, I like to picture the moment of Jesus watching the steward taste it, and his face light up. And Jesus, finding that amusing, laughing. He's never tasted wine like that before. And then the servants, like whispering to each other, and one of them pointing at Jesus, and Jesus seeing it, them feeling like, oh, I just got caught, busted, and Jesus gave them a little wink, a little smile, like, yep, well, this is our little secret. And then watching the steward leave the bride and the groom, and they have no idea what's happened. They, in a wedding like this, you generally don't go to the bride and groom and tell them the problems with the ceremony, right? They probably had no idea that any of this was happening behind the scenes. And so the bride and the groom, who are beginning their life together, sharing one of those looks of newlyweds, of like, what was that about? And the bride being like, I have no idea. And then them tasting it, and then like looking at it again, and Jesus just taking it all in. This is a wedding. Do you see Jesus kind of socially awkward, not knowing what to do, sitting off in the corner, thinking, I could be preaching right now. I could be doing the work that I've been sent to do. Or do you see him losing himself in the moment of the party, dancing in front of the conga line? Do you see him when music plays, and this is a time where there wasn't a DJ. If you wanted music, you had to make music together. Do you see him joyfully singing these songs, the Psalms, together with the people of God? Do you see him in this moment, swept up in joy, looking at the father and the mothers of the groom and bride, seeing them smiling, so proud, with a little tear coming down their eye of knowing their life has just changed too, quite a bit. Taking it all in. And saying, my hour has not yet come. But it's the joy set before me that will allow me to endure the suffering that is coming my way. And in this moment, the joy of a wedding, he's not thinking about the husband and just about the husband and groom. He's thinking about heaven and earth coming together, merging, the marriage of heaven and earth as Christ returns back to us so that we can be his people and God can be our God. The wine that he provided in his last hour of the Passover, saying, giving the cup to the disciples and saying what? This is my blood. This is a new covenant. This, take and drink and be washed and cleansed from the inside. The outer washing, that's over. What that is pointed towards is me. And now this is the last hour. Now my blood is the wine that heals and brings. That Jesus is taking it all in, overflowing with joy, saying, yes, now I know why the prophets envisioned a time of a banquet. Now I know when the prophets envisioned the end of exile, these images of God, it was feasting, it was joy, it was music, it was dancing. The kingdom has come. I can see it now in this place all around me. And while my hour has not yet come, the joy I need to get there is here. And I'm happy to provide the wine as a sign pointing towards what I've come to bring you. Listen again to the words of Hebrews. Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary or lose heart. It's the third day when this wedding takes place. Of course, John is setting up another third day, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. That a time when a new creation will begin, because that is the eighth sign in the book of John. Or it is the first sign of a new week, of a new creation that is happening. His hour has not yet come, but the joy has. The wedding that will come between heaven and earth, he's seeing around him saying, yes, that joy is why I'm here. That joy that is never ending, where the wine never runs out, where unreconciled people don't come to places together anymore, is all coming to an end. This feasting, this connection, it literally feels like heaven to God, to Jesus. This literally feels like heaven. And the time of washing jars points us towards the final work of Christ. Maybe, I know each of you have experienced this. I know each of you have experienced these moments that were, and the word you might use is transcendent. There was a joy. There was a loss of a sense of time. There was, when it ended, you trying to hold on to it, maybe even recreate it later. There are these moments in time that are like this wedding, that are signs pointing us towards the joy that awaits us. Times when all we're called to do is to say, thank you. I'm so grateful for this moment. That like those who washed their hands and invited God to their wedding, so too in these spaces of joy and connection, do we learn to say, thank you, Father. This is literally a taste of the life that awaits me. This joy will, in the same way, help Christ endure great suffering. So too will this joy help me run with perseverance the race marked out for me. The road ahead. A time and a season of weariness and losing heart. How many of you this week would say, I was weary, or I lost my heart in some way? The invitation of the writer of Hebrews is to look at a moment like this, the joy that Christ experienced, and the joy of those who have gone before us, as a sign that points us towards the life that awaits us. So may you, this week, have at least one moment of transcendent joy. And in that moment, may it be a sign pointing you to Christ, to the one who provides the wine, to the one who paved the way through his blood for us to experience that joy in an unending place. And may you come to the table now to receive the bread and the cup, remembering the bread is the body of Christ broken for you. The cup is given to you to take and drink for the forgiveness of sins. And as a foretaste of the joy, the unending joy that awaits us because of the work of Jesus Christ. Let me pray over us as we come to the table. Father, the only words that come to our mind as we come to the table are thank you. Thank you for Jesus. Thank you for just this window into the inner life of joy, the inner life of generosity, of love, of giving, delighting in moments like that, with a joy that was so much greater than any of the indignities done to him. That joy placed him in a plane above those indignities. May we give our attention to Jesus. May we fix our eyes on him, for he is the pioneer and the perfecter of our faith. May we consider him who endured so much opposition from sinners, so that we will not grow weary or lose heart. In Jesus' name, amen.